Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending January 21st. We're into our third week of January. The Mercury retrograde does end this week. We do have a shadow period into next week, so things might still be a little bit crazy, a little bit wonky there. We're so far so good though. It doesn't I'm gonna say anything. I'm knocking on wood here, but it doesn't. It's been a few things, but nothing major yet. So hopefully it stays that way. I am recording, and as I am recording, the biggest storm this coast has ever seen is on its way. So I'm gonna get through these pretty quick. So hopefully we can get through the recording, and I don't have to re-record it later in case the power goes out or something crazy like that. So let's just jump into it. We're going to start as we always do with Aries. Aries continues to be focused on the inner closet, so our inner emotional health, so to speak. Most of the Aries that I know, they have a tendency to kind of avoid this issue like the plague. And I know one in particular, actually, that I've been not necessarily working with but talking with lately, that he's kind of gotten to a point where it all just came to a head and he can't ignore it anymore. And a lot of times when your focus is on that, which it will be for the next few weeks even, it does sort of feel like you just can't avoid it anymore. You keep hitting these walls that you can't get through because there's just so much anger and negativity and resentment and emotions that in order for you to move forward, you just have to clear some of that out. And so it sucks, to be honest with you. It sucks to start the year off like this, but at the same time, I think it's a really good opportunity at the beginning of the year to do a cleansing of yourself and just let go of the things that are no longer serving you as much as you can. And the things that you can't let go of, it does become a little bit easier to hold on to them when you let go of the little things, if that makes sense. At least in my experience, that is the case, or that is true. Jupiter continues to be in Aries in a grand sextile with Mars, as well as the Sun, Moon, and there's a little bit of an influence of Pluto there, as well as Pluto is literally moving into that cusp of Aquarius there. So we're starting to see that movement taking place also. And of course, we are pretty much kicking off the week with a new moon in Aquarius as well. So Jupiter lines up with that new moon. There's a lot of energy going into that this week, for sure. With your focus on your inner emotional self and your inner emotional health, Mars's focus is on self. That is obviously cleaning out that closet is a really important tool for you to be able to move forward and succeed and get that energy back. I think you're talking about your ruling planet here, which is what drives you. That Mars energy drives you, and you want it to drive you in the right direction. And the Sun, Moon, and as well as Pluto, to a certain extent, are all focused on career. So this is kind of a weird lineup here, but it's not. If you're trying to advance in your career, old habits and old mindsets are going to hold you back from being able to make that advancement. You're going to question it. You won't be as aggressive going into it. Maybe you'll be too aggressive going into it. A lot of those factors do play into it. Taking the time to work on you helps you to be able to develop the skills that you need to be able to move forward in your career goals. So basically what it comes down to is, if you want to move forward in your career, you have to cut what's holding you back, period. And if there are mindsets that are holding you back, if there's old fears that are holding you back, any of those things, they have to be released so that you do have the space to be able to move forward in those goals. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Taurus, focus is on self, although Uranus also brings a slight element of your emotional self into this as well. We have our physical self, the face that we show the world, and then we have the parts of ourselves that we hold back and don't necessarily show to everybody. We keep them very private. And Uranus's influence is sort of bringing that private stuff to the surface, which is definitely not something that you want to deal with in public. At least most fixed signs don't. I surely don't. I'm a fixed sign myself, not a Taurus, but a fixed sign. And Uranus continues to be retrograde this week. So what does that all mean really? When you are promoting yourself, and there's a lot of, in the beginning, new year, new me kind of an attitude. Lots of people have that sort of thing going on. I did see this thing on Facebook that I thought was absolutely fantastic. And of course, I shared it because I thought the message was worth sharing. And it was something along the lines of, every year I've done new year, new me. This year, I'm going to focus on just being. And so instead of trying to change who I am going to promote who I am and be proud of who I am. And I really feel that that's what this is all about for you Tauruses this week. I feel like the mindset of new year, new me actually holds us back in many ways, because we put a lot of effort and energy into changing who we are, and there's no reason for us to change who we are. If anything, our goal in life is to use our talents to the best of our ability and to manage our downfalls to the best of our ability. So of course, Tauruses are always known for stubbornness, for example. Stubbornness gets in the way of you being able to move forward in a lot of different goals, and I get that, but stubbornness can also work in your favor if you're stubborn about making sure that you are focused on the goal and that you stay focused on the goal. And that's where your stubbornness actually works in your favor. So I look at our quote unquote downfalls, our human downfalls, as things that we can use to our advantage. We just don't always make the choice to use them to our advantage. So if you flip that around, it's definitely helpful for you. The other thing that really pops up to me for you guys around all of this is, because Uranus is a retrograde, Uranus is usually a blow things up and do things differently kind of an influence, which is funny thing, but he influences a fixed sign, and yet that's really not a fixed sign thing to do. It's just that Aquarius is the fixed sign that doesn't like change but promotes change. We're very confusing. Don't even bother trying to figure us out. The point is that this retrograde motion is actually saying, go back to your roots. Go back to the place where you said, this is the person that I want to be, and make sure that you are lined up accordingly with those original goals as well. And if you're not, make the changes that you need to make in order to maintain. I feel like the bottom line for all of us really is this. This is what it comes down to. If we're promoting changes for ourselves because this is what we want, that's fine. But most of us go through life changing ourselves, trying to fit into other people's ideals. And you want to really pay attention to whether or not the changes that you're making are your changes, because this is what you want to be, and not being influenced by society and the people around you and the changes that you think you need to make in order to fit into that. The whole term of fitting in, that's I get it, and many Tauruses are very social and they're very much like that. But the truth is that I feel for you guys moving into the beginning of this year, especially, we're already 3 weeks into the year, you guys know what you want to do, and you just got to eliminate the bullshit that gets in the way of that, period. So it's not new year, new me. It's new year. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it, and I'm not going to make excuses for it. It just is what it is. And that's really the kind of energy that you want to put into the first month of this year. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Gemini, focus is on the past this week with Mars influencing the house of self as well. So we're really looking at who we are now versus who we were in the past. And with Mars energy being directed towards this, a couple of things really are coming out of it. The first one is I kind of get this sense of a lot of energy being put into making these changes, or a lot of energy is being put into this type of focus. When you're focused on yourself, I think a lot of people when they first start taking the journey of healing, whether it's physical healing, mental, emotional, what have you, they get really excited, and that Mars energy is a representation of that. You put all your energy into it. It's like, okay, I'm going to completely change my life. Everything is going to be great. Oh my gosh. And then you actually go on the journey and you realize that it's a lot more difficult than you thought it was going to be. And this is any kind of journey, really. And so we always are stuck in this, and Geminis especially are always stuck in this new energy. It's almost like you get drunk on the new energy and you want to keep that flowing, but it's really hard to do as you're getting into the process. And a lot of times that's where Geminis tend to get lost, because if you're not giving me that Mars energy the whole entire time, I'm going to lose interest and sort of wander away after a squirrel or something like that. This week, though, it's really important because of the lineup that Mars is having with Jupiter, the Sun, Moon, and a little bit of Pluto as well. With Mars focus on self, Jupiter's focus on our emotional selves, our deep emotional selves. That sounds a little scary, but just hold on there. And the Sun, Moon, and Pluto's focus on career. Now, if we were talking about making career choices, this really comes down to the energy that you put into that is going to be lessened every time something from the past comes up to influence that decision. So any kind of fear from past job experiences, any kind of disappointments from past jobs situations, those types of things are going to start to lessen the energy going into that. I feel that one of the biggest lessons for Geminis is the fact that their energy tends to spike. So when I'm talking about putting a ton of energy into the beginning of it because you're really excited, and then the energy goes down, right? And so it's almost like a misuse of energy, if that makes sense. Using too much over here, and you don't have enough over here. The more you can maintain that energy level a little bit and balance it out, the easier it is, the easier the process is going to be for you. But bottom line here is, especially with Mars trine with the Sun, Moon, and Pluto, you're looking at a fantastic opportunity. And all you need to do is just get rid of some of the BS that's in the way of you actually making the decision to go for this opportunity. Because we're not just talking about an opportunity that pops up that you might be able to get. We're talking more about an influence that is coming to you and saying, I'm offering you this. And if you are actually getting that offer, you don't want your own emotional BS to get in the way of you making the decision to take that offer, because this could be an offer that you should not refuse. So that is what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving on to Cancer. Focus is on the mind and how you think this week. And Pallas Athene is there to continue to influence your thought process. Pallas Athene is retrograde, known as the warrior goddess. She is a fighter, but her retrograde sort of influence tends to smooth that out a little bit. And what I get from this is a lot of creativity, a lot of creative ideas. We're talking about a woman who lives in a man's world normally, because back then women didn't fight. That was a man's job. And so to retrograde that brings it back to the ultimate feminine, and the ultimate feminine is all about creative ideas. The ultimate feminine is all about flow and allowing things to flow in the direction that they need to. When we're focusing this on the mind, what's interesting about this is I feel like the lesson here is that most cancers are very creative thinkers, but they don't necessarily do anything with it afterwards. And this is all about being proactive and productive. When it comes to these types of ideas, if you can't do anything about it right now, the best course of action is to write it down so that you don't forget it, because that's the issue. You get this beautiful flow and all of these ideas, and if you don't write it down, then tomorrow when you have time for it, they're gone, right? It happens all the time. In order to avoid not being able to focus on one thing at a time specifically, that's the best outlet, is to just have a notebook with you. And once you get an idea, jot it down so that you can come back to it later on and actually put more time and energy into that. This focus is going to continue for the next few weeks, and Pallas Athene isn't going anywhere. So that influence will continue to bring you some creative ideas all through this week, and probably into next week, maybe even a little bit into the week after that. For cancers that have a creative based career, this is a wonderful thing for you guys, because a lot of times that flow of that creativity, if it's not flowing, it's really hard to get it to flow. And this kind of opens up the floodgates for you to be able to do that. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're going to move on to Leo. We have the dark moon or Lilith influencing your sign this week, and focus is on the home. And very specifically, the dark moon's energy is retrograde at this time, so usually her influence is massive changes, just completely destroying one part of her life in order to open up another part of her life. With this retrograde, we're still talking about change, but we're talking about minimal change, if that makes sense. And as we're focusing this energy on our home, this really is about taking this time to reorganize, to get rid of some things, to maybe add an influence of a new type of decorating, things like that. I also am really picking up that this is a time, and I think for Leos, the beginning of the year is really a good time for this, to just sort of take stock of how everything is flowing in your home, to make sure that that flow basically continues or improves into the next year, if that makes sense. There's also an element I feel for you guys, in terms of changing your mind, if that makes sense. So to set something up and then realize I don't like that, and then completely change it, and then go, you know what, I liked it back the way that it was. And so I feel like in some cases that's going to drive you crazy, but this is how creativity works also. It's not, I think for fixed signs like Leo, we want to have one idea and do it and be done with it. But sometimes we do have to kind of rock back and forth and try things out and try new things, and, set it up and realize it wasn't exactly how we saw it in our minds, and then kind of blow it up and do it all over again. So have a little patience with yourself when you decide that junk drawer shouldn't be a junk drawer anymore, but then you take all the junk out and realize you can't really get rid of the junk, and so it winds up being a junk drawer again. Sometimes that kind of stuff happens because it's not really junk, it's just a bunch of random stuff that you need, that you have really no other place to put it, if that makes sense. It's not you being overly critical or overly picky, it's you trying something different, and that's really the way that you want to look at it, because the other way is a little bit negative and it doesn't put the right energy into everything else that you're doing. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Virgo. Virgo is in between focuses this week, which means you get to focus on whatever you want to focus on this week, which I think is awesome. Always like it when you have the open-ended focuses so that you can just kind of sort of take stock of what you feel is the most important thing for you to focus on without the influence of any other influences coming in, I guess, if that makes sense. We are kicking off the week with focus on your daily schedule, and then as we move into the end of the week, we sort of have this sort of wild card focus where there's really not a whole lot to focus on specifically. There's a couple of things that come from this for you guys. The first thing is, I mean, like you spent so much energy and time working on your calendar, working on your flow to make sure things flow smoothly, that you've done such a good job. It's kind of sort of given you a little bit of breathing room, if that makes sense. And to be honest with you, every Virgo I know needs a little breathing room from time to time. You guys just handle so many things all the time. So that's one thing that I feel is really important that's coming out of that. The other thing is that I really feel that this becomes a time that's necessary to embrace self-care and embrace, oh my God, actually sitting down and doing nothing. And I know that I don't know very many Virgos that can do that and not fall asleep or keep bouncing up and down, if that makes sense. This is sort of a time for you to really understand the value and the importance of creating a balance between constantly doing things and actually having some time to just chill and to learn to appreciate that chill time. I think that's really the most important thing. And I don't say that because Virgos don't appreciate that sort of time. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that there's so much energy going towards everything that you're doing that a lot of times that kind of self-care is just put on the back burner. I'll get to it when I have some time for it. And usually in my experience, when I do that, my body will force that time on me, whether I have plans or not. So bottom line here is that I feel like this becomes a very important focus for you guys this week when you start to actually put that kind of time into your schedule, giving you that balance between heavy workload and doing and just being. And I feel like part of that being is meditation. It's about refocusing. It's about regrounding. It makes everything else so much easier to get done because you're not so scattered. And that's really one of the biggest curses to being a Virgo, is so many irons in the fire that you tend to be scattered. We'll just eliminate that going into 2023. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Libra, we are between focuses, kicking off the week, although the moon comes in, or actually we're going to kick off the week with the moon in your sign, bringing this emotional influence around your daily schedule. And when I say emotional influence, usually what that means is you overbook yourself, you've got too much going on, there's no time for you. There are always those instances, especially when the moon is involved, where you just get emotionally overwhelmed and you can't do it anymore. That's not the best way to start off the week, to be honest with you, but luckily we've already dealt with this for a day last week. This is the end of it, and then we move on. So we're kicking off the week, unfortunately, in that energy. We are when the moon comes into your sign, we're going to start off with a square with the sun and Pluto. We're going to kick that off first, a square with the sun and Pluto. Pluto's focus is on career. Your focus is on your daily schedule. again, we're talking about overbooking. We're talking about overextending yourself so that, you know, you're just not available for something that either you forgot about or came in last minute or what have you. And it does create emotional response for a Libra. Libras want to be perfect, and they want to be there for other people, and they want to be helpful, and they want to do all of these different things. And then they have to realize that they're human beings just like the rest of us. You're going to have those times where you just can't be in 5 different places at once, even if sometimes you can, because you're just that good at what you do. The good news, and to smooth that over, is there is a trine with Saturn and Venus. Venus's focus continues to be on career. Saturn's focus is on your support system. This says, hey, this is not all about you. You do have a support system. Call on your support system for help. You know, it's not a one man or a one woman show. We'll just put it that way. And that does help you to ease the emotions of it a little bit. I kind of look at it this way. And this is a very typical Libra thing. At least most of the Libras that I know do this. Okay, I'm going to call them all out right now. They get so overwhelmed by everything that they have to do, but not once do they ask for help, ever. And even in some cases, when offered help, they don't necessarily say, yes, thank you, I accept that help. They say something else that doesn't tell the person that they want the help or that they need the help. You gotta communicate. We're in a week of Mercury retrograde, for crying out loud. Communication, and proper communication, is the most important thing that you can do to make sure that you don't wind up in a situation where you're either overbooking yourself or you're overextending yourself, because that is not a good thing for you to do either. The retrograde is going to end by the end of the week, but we're still going to be in a shadow period. So again, if you don't properly communicate, there is going to be miscommunication issues, and there always is, especially during the Mercury retrograde. So make sure that if you need help, say something. Don't expect people to see that you might need help. Just come out and say it. Hey, I need your help with this because I can't get this done without the help, and see what happens there. As the moon moves out of there, we continue to have Ceres influencing your sign, and your Ceres continues to influence your daily schedule as well. Now, Ceres is a smaller influence, a dwarf planet, if you will. So it does actually exist in the solar system, known as the Great Mother. She's all about nurturing. And that is a really weird thing to be going into your daily schedule. Or is it a weird thing? Think about it. We need to nurture what we're doing. We need to nurture our goals, and the energy that we need, nurturing energy being put into the things that we want to build. We need to nurture ourselves. We need to nurture our relationships. Ceres influence throughout the week in this is making sure, or asking you to make sure, that you are putting the right type of energy into your schedule. So whether that's nurturing for you, nurturing for your relationships, nurturing your goals, that part is up to you to figure out. The point is, nurturing is definitely a thing that needs to be on top priority to make sure these things grow in the way that you want them to grow. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving on to Scorpio. Focus continues to be on relationships this week. The moon coming into your sign on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday is going to bring a bit of emotions with it, as it usually does. It is the moon, but it is going to bring some help too. We'll start off on Monday, as the moon comes into your sign and it is influencing your day-to-day schedule. The moon square with Pluto may show a little bit of a challenge there when this influence is actually has to do with your career, and in terms of making changes in your career. My advice for that is, because this is an emotional thing, because this is a moon thing, well, obviously you don't want to let your emotions get the best of you at work. That usually is not a good idea. I will say though that if it is a situation where somebody promised you something and they're just not following through with it, there is a way to react that makes things happen for you, and there's a way to react that does not, and usually the way that does not is the way that we most of the time go to. So make sure that if something happens, you step away, you go through your little anger portion in your head by yourself, and then you make sure that you go to this person with a clear head, with the intention to get the results that you want, not necessarily to have an emotional outburst that you hope will fix the problem. Newsflash, it probably won't. As we move into Tuesday, this square becomes a T square, unfortunately, as the moon moves into opposition with Uranus and squares with Saturn and as well as Venus. Saturn and Venus are focused on career as well as your support system. Uranus is focused on self. The moon is focused on relationships. This sort of plays out to be one of those situations where you need help and it just feels like nobody's there to help you, or all of a sudden, for some reason, the people that normally are there to help you are just like unwilling to help you, or they're not available to help you, or what have you. And it is really difficult when it feels like you don't have any support to help you with something. But I also notice in those moments that I've been in those moments myself, this is less about who I have to support me and more about how can I support me? What do I need to do to support me? And that's not something that we generally go towards because we're so used to having backup. We're so used to having people there to support us. But, I have a fantastic support system, and sometimes I just can't get anybody to support me. It is something that happens because this is the lesson that I need to learn. Whether I want to support myself or not is neither here nor there to the universe. The universe is like, you are the best support system you can have. You need to rely on that. And because Uranus is pointed right at self, this is what it's saying. It's saying this is all about you and what you can do, and not necessarily about what everybody else can do. That moon, as it leaves, moves into a grand sextile. A much easier way of dealing with the moon being in our sign is this is, of course, a much nicer place for it to be in, a much more helpful aspect as it moves into this grand sextile with Jupiter, Neptune, the Sun, and Pluto. The Sun and Pluto move into conjunction with each other right at the end of the Sun being in Capricorn. This particular aspect of these planets, the moon continues to be focused on relationships. Jupiter and Neptune are focused on a little bit of our support system, a little bit of our emotional closet. So some deep emotional stuff coming up around this, but this is a good thing. So it's about healing, really. And then, of course, Pluto and the Sun continue to be focused on career. This, to me, is all about letting go of stuff that is holding you back, your fears, the past experiences, all of those things that, we tend to, as we go in the direction of growing physically, we also start to pick up all of these big old rocks. And each one of these rocks is something that is going to prevent us from moving forward in some way, because it's a traumatic thing that happened to us. And our initial response is always, let's prevent that from happening again, even if that means not going after a promotion because we didn't get a promotion that we tried to go after later. It makes no sense, but successful people don't do this, right? It's the bulk of us that do find ourselves in the same place forever. And this is what we're trying to break out of as much as we possibly can. building the relationships that we need in order to be successful is a really important part of this also, I feel. I've always heard that, you know, you want to hang out with the people that you want to be. If the people that you're normally spending your time with, and let's face it, we all make friends, you know, and build relationships throughout our lives. But if those people are in some cases, their influence is holding you back, you need a new crowd, not a permanent new crowd, but you need to look in a different direction and spend time with people who are more in line with the energy and the direction that you want to go in. So for instance, if you want to be a millionaire, you need to hang out with millionaires. They're the ones with the money. They know how to get the money. They know what to do with the money. And so and by putting your energy in with these other people, you're also changing your mindset to theirs rather than the ones that are holding you back. Doesn't mean that you dump them completely, unless of course that's something that you need to do, but it doesn't mean that you have to dump them completely. It just means that now is not the time for me to mold energy with these people. I have to mold energy with these people because that's what I need to be successful. So all of that being said, it looks like a couple of days that are going to be a little bit difficult for you guys, but I know you're going to get through it. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Sagittarius, the moon moves into your sign on Wednesday. Yes, that is Wednesday. Moving into opposition with Mars right off the get-go. The good news about that is that it'll be over soon. So we'll just get it out of the way right off the bat. Moon's focus is on relationships. Mars' focus is on self. This is probably more than likely going to create one of those situations where you sort of feel like when you're forming a relationship with somebody, you're supposed to change who you are. You're supposed to change the energy that you put out there. I mean, Sagittarian people put out a lot of energy. It's true. When I meet a quiet Sagittarian, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, okay? Because they're not necessarily quiet people. But when you feel like you've got to change who you are in order to fit in somewhere else, first of all, I don't know many Sagittarians that actually enjoy doing that or are willing to do that. Second of all, I don't know many Sagittarians that are willing to do that and don't get angry about it. And the fact that this is Mars we're talking about here, it makes total sense. Also, with the moon being squared with Saturn, which is focused on those that support us, there's a big element of, you know, I'll support you if you change into the person that I want you to be. I would say number one, this is not something that doesn't come up for you guys on a regular basis. I think this is something that comes up for you guys a lot. Having an emotional response to it is not going to be helpful. So right off the bat, that's one thing that's coming from that. The other thing is, there is a way to use diplomacy to get what you want and not forcing what you want, and using that diplomacy is probably going to be your best bet in that situation. I lied a few minutes ago because that opposition with Mars continues into the next day, unfortunately, but focus is on finances and not relationships this time. And Sagittarius's focus is on finances as well. This is right around the time also on Thursday, the Mercury retrograde is going to end. Although we do have a shadow period for another week or so, so things could continue to get wonky a little bit there. But we're looking at the moon square with Neptune, which continues to bring that focus of support system in there, and then continues that opposition with Mars as well. Now, in terms of finances and financial goals, this is very interesting because especially for my Sags that are in a relationship or are married in some way, Finances, of course, when you're in a relationship or you're married, tend to be a joint thing. And so this could create some issues or some disagreements, I should say, around how the finances are taken care of, for lack of a better way of saying it, in terms of spending money, in terms of saving money, in terms of, all kinds of things. Just be aware that this is going to be the day where if there's going to be any arguments over finances, more than likely it is going to be this day. And it's very funny how the retrograde is ending on this day, but this is coming up in any case. As we move on out of there and the moon starts to move on out of there, things sort of do calm down a little bit with your focus on finances this week, outside of the moon being in there. One of the biggest things that I feel is that you're really paying attention to your financial goals and what you want to do. There just may be a disagreement in, between what your plan is and what somebody else's plan is. And it is highly possible that they are right. It's highly possible that you are right. The point is to come up with a diplomatic compromise rather than trying to force what you want to do. And always keep an open mind, because it may seem like a great idea to you, but you may also not be taking into consideration certain things that you need to take into consideration in order to make those goals. Let's face it, we all do that from time to time. And it takes that outside perspective sometimes to be able to see those things that we're missing. So keep an open mind and not necessarily a stubborn one, and it'll work out way better for you. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Capricorn, focus is on long-term goals. The Mercury retrograde ends on Thursday, which is good because it is in Capricorn, and the sun leaves your sign on Friday. Thursday being the last day of Capricorn season. I feel bad for you guys, but it's Aquarius season, so I'm excited. It's the first day of my birthday, but we won't talk about that yet. We're in Capricorn, for crying out loud. So yes, we do have an end of the Mercury retrograde. There is, of course, a week shadow period, so the official end will be next week, of course. The moon is coming into your sign also at the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, or I should say Thursday and Friday. Not in a bad way though, which is good, as the moon actually comes in and lines up favorably with other planets, or doesn't line up with other planets at all. We do have a grand sextile with Pluto and the sun move into a grand sextile towards the end of the week with Mars as well as Jupiter. Jupiter's focus is on our inner emotional health, which is a little bit tricky for Capricorns. Mars' focus is on self, and Pluto, as well as the sun's focus, is on career and long-term goals, specifically long-term career goals. Now, this is an interesting makeup here, because you wouldn't think that our emotional health and our career goals go hand in hand, but they do. They go hand in hand a lot. Biggest being that you really need to eliminate those things that hold you back in terms of creating those goals. So fears over certain things that have happened in the past really should not be influencing your current career goals. Most Capricorns are really good about that, and they're really good about making sure that that doesn't happen. However, it still does happen. So you do want to be aware of that when you're creating those goals, to make sure that you're not allowing any past influence to influence your decision currently right now. This isn't the same time. This isn't the same situation. It's probably not even the same job. So no need to worry about it, Capricorns. The other thing that really pops up for you guys is this trine between Mercury and Uranus, which continues throughout the entire week, retrograde or not. Mercury's focus is on long-term goals. Uranus's focus is on self. So I feel that this is not just about career goals, but there's also some personal goals. you Capricorns are, I mean, in love with goals. So I'm not surprised that you would have multiple goals at once to start off the year. Not surprised at all. And that's totally okay, because if anybody can handle it, you guys can anyways, right? So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving on to Aquarius, which I'm really excited about because, of course, this week is the end of Capricorn season and the beginning of Aquarius season. And I'm so excited. That's the first day of my birthday. Now, of course, it is not my birthday. My birthday is at the end of Aquarius season, but I celebrate when the sun moves into Aquarius and when February hits the 1st, and all the way 15 days into my birthday. And then by the 16th, I'm pretty much done with my birthday because I've celebrated it for like a month and a half. Okay. But I'm going to be celebrating this week for sure, because to me, Aquarius season is just my time, and the energy there is just pushing me forward to be awesome and get these things done. And I hope, and I do hope, that it is the same for the rest of you Aquarians out there. The sun moves into Aquarius on Friday in conjunction with Pluto, which is 28 degrees in Capricorn, which means it's coming. It's hovering over us right now. We continue to have Venus and Saturn in Aquarius also for the remainder of this week as well. Venus and Saturn moving into conjunction with each other. We have also a new moon ending the week as the moon moves into Aquarius and into conjunction with the sun and Pluto, all three planets in a grand sextile with Jupiter and Mars. Focus is on career for Aquarius this month, as well as the support of others. Mars's focus is on self, and Jupiter's focus is on our emotional health. Our emotional health. First of all, let me just say, I have had so much focus on emotional health the past few months that I am sick and tired of it. And the universe doesn't care if I'm sick and tired of it. If I'm not getting through it, if I'm not working through it, the universe is going to keep bringing it up. And Aquarians are not people known for wanting to deal with their emotional stuff. They're really known for stuffing it and hoping it goes away. And I'll just have to say, how does that work for you? Because it's not working for me, and it didn't work for me for a really long time. So bottom line here is that my mindset is always, oh my God, what could it be? And it's always something horrible. Sometimes it's just letting go of something little so that you can move forward in what you need to do. And in terms of coming up with career goals, especially at the beginning of the year, this is a great time to do it. You don't want those past emotional influences to be influencing your decision right now. It doesn't matter what happened then. This is now. And we're not talking about the energy you put into it then. We're talking about the energy you're willing to put into it now. And that really is the bottom line. Also, we're kicking off the season, Aquarius season, that is with a new moon. That is a beautiful energy to be kicking off the season. And actually, for the first few months of the year, each sign is kicking off with a new moon. This adds this brilliant energy, like something new, like let's try something new. And to be able to harness that in our sign this week just sort of puts a whole new spin on what it is that we're focused on. So I'm going to look at it this way. No more letting all this other BS hold me back. It is time to nose to the grind, to make sure that I get my goals set and that I am actually in the process of making sure that I am achieving my goals, because and to keep myself on track, because let's face it, one of the biggest issues with Aquarians is distractions. And this right here is the biggest distraction we have. I mean, we are horrible at distracting ourselves, really. The biggest issue we have with is with distractions. And I don't know about you guys, but for the last several years, there's been a lot of loss, There's been a lot of emotional stuff. There's been a lot. I mean, there's been so much stuff in the past few years that I finally had to say last year, look, this isn't going away. I just have to be able to do what I need to do despite all this craziness that's going on, and just deal with the craziness as and when I can. Because if I don't do that, it takes me a sloth amount of time to get anywhere. And let's face it, I'm sick and tired of dealing with that. And I'm sure you guys are too. No more coming up with ideas and trying to fine tune them and control the bejesus out of them until we have completely killed them. Let's just throw it out there and see what happens, because you never know. And we don't have to control everything, even if we think we do. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And finally, we are in Pisces. Neptune continues to be in Pisces, and focus is on those that support you, your support system, your cheerleading squad. The good news is a sextile with Pluto is really all we're looking at in terms of lining up, planets lining up, and sextiles are actually very helpful aspects. So that is definitely a good thing. Pluto's focus is on career, actually right on the cusp of career and long-term goals. So we're looking at our career goals. I feel like this is a time for you guys to focus on those goals, but also your support system as well. Now, sometimes we have a fantastic support system and then that changes and we don't have quite as a fantastic support system as we think we do. Or we think we have a great support system and then something happens and we take the rose-colored glasses off and realize we don't really have a great support system at all. Either way, taking stock of that support system gives you a chance not necessarily to just look at it as, okay, well, this is crap, I don't have any support, but to fine tune it. If you are, okay, the Pisces who is in a situation where he's very much taking care of his parents right now. That is, his whole life is taking care of his parents right now. And he has a lot of siblings. And I'm not saying that the siblings aren't doing anything, okay? What I am saying is that if he were in the situation to where he was the only one taking care of his parents, that would be obviously really unfair, right? Especially because he does have a couple of people around him that could be helping him. Rather than not saying anything, which is the typical Pisces thing to do, is to just silently suffer. Okay, we're going to omit that for 2023. We don't want to do that. Rather than not saying anything, the best course of action would be to find the most diplomatic way of going to those people and saying, hey, this is happening. I can't handle it on my own. What is your schedule? When can you help me out to help them out? And as you're organizing the support system, you know, people don't realize that they're being unsupportive unless you tell them. 90% of the time, they will fix that problem. There is the 10% of people who really don't care if you don't have support or not, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about the majority, and the majority of people are sitting there waiting for somebody to say something to them. They're not going to offer, they're just sitting there waiting for somebody to say something to them. So this week really is all about communication. The Mercury retrograde is ending. We're moving past that at this point. I mean, there is a little bit of a shadow period, but also, what are Mercury retrogrades but a chance to change the way that we communicate so that we can find communication patterns that work better for us. And this is a prime time for you to be doing that this week. So regardless of what it is that's going on in your life, in terms of your support system, make sure that you put in the steps to create the support system that works for you, especially if you don't have a support system that's working for you in the way that it should be right now. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And that's what I have for everybody. I'm so happy that I got through this video, and I've got one more video to go. Hopefully that storm hasn't hit us yet, but it's coming. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you all for hanging out and watching, and I will see you guys next week. make it a great week, everybody. It is in your power to make it a great week. So make sure that you do that. You guys have a great week.